Hello, my name is Genevieve Jomantis. I will be your instructor for today's webinar. This is week 1, Friday, January 15th, 2021. So the first thing that we're going to do is set up our device to make sure that we are ready to engage in this webinar. Even though this webinar is in an asynchronous format, meaning that this is a recording, I have set up opportunities for you to participate. So you will see some things in the chat, watch some videos, so I won't be monopolizing the whole lecture by talking the whole time. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you want to do is click on the purple Collaborate button on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Click on the gear to access My Settings. Click on the Audio Video Setup option to set up your camera and microphone. For the audio test, you will make sure the bar moves when you speak. If your audio is working, select Yes, the audio is working button. For the video test, verify that you can see yourself through the webcam. If your webcam is working, select Yes, the video is working button. You'll also want to make sure to enlarge the attendees panel, drag it to the left to see the attendees panel, and then click the chat bubble to display the chat messages. So I'm going to go ahead and type a welcome into the chat as well as the links to the YouTube video that you will need for this webinar. So give me 1 second here and I'm going to go ahead and input this into the chat. All right, if your chat is open, you should see a hello, welcome from me as well as your video links. So we will go ahead and continue on with our slides. So the next thing that you want to do is make sure that your learning environment is set up to optimally view this webinar, meaning that you want to limit your distractions by silencing or turning off your phone, shut the door if you're in a space that you have a door, and then place a do not disturb sign up so other people in your household know that you are in a class. We do understand that most people are logging in from home, and so we understand if we hear the pitter-patter of furry friends or young children, we are just going to embrace that. I am also coming in from home, and I have 3 young ones, so you may also hear them in the background as well. So we will just kind of go with the flow. The next thing, just as we got our device ready for today's webinar, we want to clear our mind so our mind is ready to engage with the material. So I want you to go ahead, take a moment to breathe. As you breathe in, make sure you release out any worries or frustrations or stressors that you may be having going on from the day. Go ahead and take a deep breath in. And then out. Okay, excellent. So the next thing I'm going to do is a quality check. This is for myself to make sure that this webinar is recording. So I can see in the top left-hand side of my screen, I do have the red record indicator on. So we are live. You should also be able to see the words quality check on this slide, as well as hear me adequately. If you are having technical difficulties, please make sure to reach out to our tech team so they can troubleshoot your device. So for this webinar, we are going to be focusing on thinking collaboratively, learning in a community of inquiry textbook written by D. Randy Garrison. Again, this is our first week of the webinar series, January 15th, 2021. Today's web conference will be focusing on an introduction to collaborative thinking, chapter 1. So I want you to go ahead, take out a sheet of paper. We're going to take a moment to reflect on what collaborative thinking means to you. And of course, because this is a reflection, don't worry. There are no incorrect responses because these are your personal responses. So there is no pressure. So the first thing that we want to look at is what is thinking? How can we think collaboratively? Many people, when they think of thinking, they think it is a solo event that only happens within yourself. However, we will come to realize that the idea of a singular inventor or discoverer is actually a myth. Collaborative thinking is going to involve many people. It's where we share ideas as a team. We work to promote innovative ideas and enhance creativity. Let's think about it for a minute. Right now, we are all familiar with the COVID-19 pandemic. There have been many efforts to develop a vaccine and response to combat the virus. Since last year, doctors and scientists have come a long way with vaccine and treatment options. There is no way these efforts would be possible solo. They required collaborative thinking of many individuals across the globe. Now let's take a look at how collaborative thinking impacts learning. Traditionally, learning has been approached with an instructor providing information directly to an individual, and the individual is responsible for recalling the information presented to them. However, a problem with this approach is that it is rather passive, and the learner only gets one perspective on the information. This approach also does not support long-term learning transfer, because if we remember from previous courses, typically long-term learning transfer is going to require learning to happen also in authentic situations. So in other words, real-world situations. However, when we engage others in a learning process to think collaboratively, we learn together to promote things such as open communication, we support critical thinking, and because when we're working with others collaboratively, often it is more of an authentic learning real world environment, so it is more likely to promote learning transfer. Now, I want you to take a moment to view this YouTube video. Again, as a reminder, you can get the link in our chat. So if you haven't already, make sure you expand on the chat to get this link. And then go ahead and pause this webinar video and then go ahead and view the YouTube video. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. I thought it was a good one. So I want you to take a moment, think of a time where you have experienced collaborative thinking within a team. Was your experience positive or negative? Again, make sure to jot these down, because with these reflection activities, we are going to be using them in an exercise at the end of this webinar. Did you have negative experiences with what you thought may have been collaborative learning? If so, there is a good chance that what you experienced on the team was not really collaborative learning, but groupthink. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, groupthink, collaborative learning, or collaborative thinking, isn't that pretty much the same thing? If I'm thinking in a group, I must be thinking collaboratively. And no, not always. Groupthink, unfortunately, encourages conformity, meaning that the group does not support individualistic viewpoints or critical thinking. They typically are only focused on one viewpoint. So if we take a look at this picture here, you will notice that we have a group of people that are about to head off the ledge here. and putting themselves in a hazardous situation. So you can see these blindfolds are here to represent when we are only looking at one viewpoint, we are blinding ourselves to other opportunities. So which can be very disastrous for a group, as you can see in this slide. So the next thing that we want to talk about is collaboration in the workforce. So as we've learned from previous slides, collaborative thinking and learning promotes critical thinking skills. So this has found to be a necessary trait to be successful in the workforce. However, one interesting thing, research has found that many students that have recently graduated do not have collaborative thinking skills. So there has been a big push in education, specifically higher education, to make sure that the students are getting offered more opportunities to think collaboratively, so that when they do make that transition from being a student and into their first job, that they are able to think collaboratively. That's why you may notice now in the classrooms, instead of having just physical lecture halls, our campus has also constructed new classroom environments where they have similar setups to where you can see in this picture. The reason why these classrooms have those round tables is to facilitate active learning and collaborative thinking. Next, we have another video for you to watch on ways you can enhance collaborative thinking in your discipline. So this video is going to give you 7 good ways that you can promote collaborative thinking in your space, whether it's as a student working with study groups or, in your field. So again, go ahead to the chat box and then make sure that you click on that video link, and you'll want to pause this webinar while you're viewing the video. So we are going to sum this up by saying collaborative thinking is a good thing. It promotes creativity, critical thinking. It's a necessary trait needed in the workforce, and it helps with learning retention by promoting learning transfer. So I want to thank you for taking the time to view this webinar. Of course, even though this is a virtual learning environment, I want to make sure you have the opportunity to engage with the other students in this class. So as promised, there is an exercise after this webinar. I want you to head on over to our Google Classroom, where you will find a Flipgrid activity. In the Flipgrid, you are going to give instructions on a video prompt, and I want you to respond with your video prompt with how you can integrate collaborative learning in your environment, whether it's in your job or in your role as a student. So I want you to go ahead and do a video response with that, and then also take a moment to respond to 2 of your classmates as well. This will give us a great opportunity to get to know one another better and interact. So again, thank you for viewing this webinar, and I hope to see you next time.